Hi, so for my presentation, I will be doing it regarding the effects of the coronavirus on racism towards Asian and Asian American population. I feel that this is a good topic for me to, as a choice for my literature review, because as coming from an Asian background, and with the coronavirus being a certain current event in the world, it'd be a very good time and a good topic that we can talk about and to analyze forward. So first off, I'll be going over my three viewpoints, and we'll be looking at the viewpoints and the racism towards coming from an American perspective, and an Asian perspective, and towards an Asian American perspective. So the coronavirus started out in November of 2019 in Wuhan, China, and slowly at first it was just seeming like a little virus that didn't got out of hand, but eventually throughout over time the virus did get out of hand to the point where the World Health Organization announced it as a global pandemic, which initially caused a lot of fear within people, and through that result many companies and jobs were put off, and a lot of people had to go into quarantine because everyone was scared of the transmission. Airlines were closed and no traveling was done, and a lot of people, because of that, they lost a lot of jobs, and many students were not going to school because the school had to shut down due to the fear of the pandemic spreading. And because of that, many people became very angry. After losing your job, you lose a lot of your income that you can be used towards your expense, like say your rent, food, gas, insurance, anything like that. And thereby a lot of people had to go and had to rely on the government, which caused them to go further into debt to cover for the people. And because of that, which caused the economy to go down in most of the countries, which in turn result to some of the negative feelings towards the Asian population themselves. So the first one that we want to talk about is from the American perspective, where mainly a lot of my paper was dedicated towards Donald Trump and his views of using the pandemic as a metaphor by calling it the Kung flu or the Chinese virus. And it pretty much paints a picture of really negative racism towards the people, whereas they can be seen as like, oh, the people who are starting this disease and they are the one who is responsible. And he also used a metaphor of calling it a war against an invisible enemy, which we are losing, but for the time being. And this, of course, going to raise a lot of concern towards, especially the citizens, and no one's ever want to be on the losing side of a war. So by him saying that this is a unseen war, like a war with an unseen enemy, that we are eternally losing, it's going to raise a lot of tensions between people. And that's for sure, because many of the people in the United States are his supporter, and of course they're going to respond with negative feelings towards the Asian community, and thereby there were many acts of racism, including boycotts and pretty much destructions of properties and indecent act towards Asian people, negative comments on social media, and calling people out, and pretty much just separating them from the others and looking at them from as a negative view if you are Asian. And this is not just with Asian, with just any type of Asian, but particularly people from China, especially they are getting hit the hardest. Like a lot of racial abuse, like people getting spat on. But eventually the racism spread towards other cultures, like cases example in Edmonton, where I'm from Vietnam, so I heard of the word on the mouth about this, where an Asian Vietnamese person was even attacked, and people were saying, oh, go back to China where you from, and stuff like that, where they all just have this fallacy of believing that, oh, all Asians are the same and that we all come from and everyone is Chinese, and they don't take the time to look at our ethnicity and to take a question about that before they just decide to make their choice and decide to be racist towards us. So which is something that's really hurtful, especially towards many Asians who we were just being Asian people have been subjected to racial abuse for quite a long time now, but we've been very silent about this. We have always been on the short end of the stick, whereas it would just skim over within a time period. Whereas today, not with George Floyd killing happening in the US there, racism seems to be a lot more impacted because of course, if you go back in time to the 1800s, there was slavery and all of that, which was a really hard time for the people of a colored community, like the black people and African people. Whereas Asian people, we've been pretty silent ever since. And another topic is from the Asians American, so the people who's been born in North America. There's people such as myself who's been here pretty much for a majority of my life. I've been here for about 16 years now, and some of those people haven't been home to their home country in such a long time, yet we are being looked at a lot by some other people as, oh, you're still Chinese, oh, you're still Asian, oh, you have look at him, like you should be careful of him, maybe he'll spread the coronavirus to you, which is a really bad fallacy of looking at it as black and white. And especially with Trump and his some of the motivation words that he said about the virus and everything like that, it creates a lot of the fallacy that appeals towards the emotions of the American people who are already very affected by this coronavirus. Like, I know many people went out of business, many people losing their home to mortgages and ending up on the street. So that just raised even more attention towards the racism, and which in turn really affected and really deeply hurt a lot of the people of the Asian communities. And it's sad to see that, because many people who are like myself, we are born here, not born here, but either born here or live here for a long time, and we are subjected to the same mistreatment and racism as other people, even though we've been living among you guys for a certain period of time now, but yet today society still fails to recognize that we are of the same kind of person. We're saying we're Canadian, we're Americans, whatever it is, we are all the same, but it's still hard to recognize us today as one of those people. Throughout this research, I find it was very intensive for sure. It's been a hard report, but I learned a lot actually. I don't realize about the fallacies and all of the metaphors and stuff that language could be used, and that how critical thinking really gets you to open up and think deeper on the subject of the matter, rather than just skimming through and reading the book like we used to back in high school and stuff. Whereas now we are required to think outside the subject and think deeper, and able to write critically is a skill that is very important, because it allows you to just state your opinion in a different matter, or to go even further beyond what people are speculating, especially with the news media nowadays. Language and the articles that they post out or sends out to TV and videos and everything like that, it can really create a message, especially now with the COVID-19 going on. A lot of those messages are leading people towards fear-mongering and scaring of what's going to happen towards the future. Is this going to be our lives for the rest of the eternity, however we live? Will the vaccine even work and everything like that? Which is why language is such a powerful tool that you can use, and it can do many things. But for us to be able to read and think critically, to understand without a biased opinion, that is something that I've actually learned quite well throughout this whole entire course, and improvement on my writing skill, hopefully. But yeah, so with that being said, that concludes my presentation. Thank you.